Sports, all loans made by WebBank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. This sounds counterintuitive, but it's much easier to handle failure than success. Because if Joy fails or I fail, you put your head down, you work hard, and you don't want to get embarrassed again. So when you fail, the solution's pretty easy. Like, get your stuff together, concentrate more, focus more, put your head down and work hard. But success is actually harder to handle. It's like, ooh, you got a raise. Man, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy. Success is hard because it's hard to be successful, and a lot of people are successful. Getting to the top's one thing. Staying at the top is really, really hard, like New England. So New England was vulnerable this weekend. They were a wounded bird. They were 1-2. They still have a completely unsettled wide receiving core. Their best wide receiving target is a running back, James White. Gronk got hurt again. They have no pass rush. They're 28th in the NFL in sacks. Brady, Belichick, it's not perfect. They lost Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator. They're a wounded bird, man. They're so vulnerable. Here comes Miami. Not very successful, but not successful guy got a little taste of success. Bought a new Corvette. Woo! He's driving a new car, got a new job, got a new corner office. Miami showed up and laid a blanking egg. Miami could have gone up 3.5 games on New England. It's not that they lost. They weren't even ready to play. Ric Flair, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And you had the man. You were healthier. You weren't unsettled at wide receiver. You weren't unsettled at running back. Your best player, Gronk, didn't get hurt. You had an opportunity. The weather was a non-factor, which, let's be fair, it is harder for a Miami or a Tampa to go play in a Green Bay or a Foxborough in November, December. They're not used to the weather, just like it's hard for a New England or a Green Bay in September to go down and play in Miami where it's, 96 degrees and smothering, or Jacksonville. So the weather was perfect. You were the healthier team. But again, this is just what Miami is. I put him in my herd hierarchy at number 10, and I deeply resented it. The staff's like, you got to give Miami a shot. And I said, I am not putting them at 10. You can't trust Miami. So much to the chagrin of me and my reputation, I snuck Miami in at 10. I will no more recommendations from the staff.
To be clear, I was not a part of that conversation. So while I very much would like for the Dolphins to be good, I trust my experiences with the Dolphins. So this is not surprising to me.
At 3:30 Eastern yesterday, third quarter, Jets, Bills, Dolphins, none of them had any points. Brady scores 38 with a collection of whatever that is. But I'm telling you, so much, it's so true. A lot of it's just cultural. Miami's got one of those cultures where they just can't handle any success. This was there to take. You could have literally seized control of the division. 4-0 out of September against 1-3. And, oh, by the way, New England's got to come to you later in the year. Where through the years, Miami against New England at home, been a pretty good matchup. Yeah, and it's not that you lost. You didn't even compete. I mean,
they did beat the Raiders and the Jets, and the Titans looked good yesterday. The Titans. By
the way, here's Tom Brady after the game. Tom Brady, celebrate rarely, grind regularly, had fun for just a minute.
Great to be back in the win column, 2-2, and it's coming quick. Foxborough, Thursday night, baby. Got to get to 3-2. Let's go!
What up?
God, Miami. I mean, you got a raise. You went out and bought yourself a sports car. You got the corner office, and you got a hangover and showed up for a meeting. That's exactly what happened yesterday. Couldn't handle that much success in your life. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Herd on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Tried to warn you, Colin. I love my Dolphins, but I've been watching this for too long.
It's incredible, right?
I mean, it's the Patriots.
They've never been more wounded. You could have gone up 3.5 games in your division.
Why do people fall for this every time?
I didn't. My staff did. I regret.
Oh, Patriots also gave it over. Tom Brady's old. He's going to retire.
Listening to my staff again.
Okay, so huge loss for the Seahawks yesterday as Earl Thomas has a broken left leg. He was being carted off the field, and he appeared to give the middle finger to the Seahawks sideline that many are interpreting as a message to the franchise that pretty much sums up his contract dispute. Well, Le'Veon Bell not only caught that gesture, he replied to one of Earl Thomas's teammates who posted on Instagram, or this was posted on Instagram. It's a quote from Bobby Wagner. If he doesn't come, then he's not a team player. If he does come and gets hurt, then it's he shouldn't have came. If I was him, I'd be pissed off. So this is a post from ESPN on their Instagram, and that was Bobby Wagner talking about Earl Thomas's injury, and Le'Veon Bell responded to that post saying, shaking my head exactly, get right, bro, and tagged Earl Thomas. I'll continue to be the bad guy for all of us.
Now,
obviously, Bell's holdout is still going on.
The average family in America makes $65,000 a year. Earl Thomas has made $50 million. And oh, by the way, he plays in Washington State, Seattle. No state tax like a Miami. So he has kept significantly more of his money than other players had. He should also thank the gifts, which, by the way, he could have gone to a crappy organization. He went to an organization that loved defense. He went to Pete Carroll, who's a very good defensive head coach. He was surrounded by K.J. Wright and Bobby Wagner and Cam Chancellor and Michael Bennett and Richard Sherman and Cliff Averill. Like he's acting like his life was terrible. $50 million in a state with no state tax in a defensive-minded organization that put Earl Thomas in the positions to succeed.
Well, look, I'm not going to speak for Earl Thomas in saying that he doesn't have some level of gratitude for all of the things that you're saying, but I also don't like counting people's pockets either. Earl Thomas obviously felt like he deserved more money for his services, and the scale thing of like, oh, he made $50 million, or he made, Kirk Cousins making $80 million guaranteed, like, that's what his business pays him to do. Like, there's a different scale for different businesses of what you make. We know that professional athletes make millions and millions and millions of dollars because that's the business that they're in, and it is an elite 1% type of business.
But you flip somebody off if you feel you've been, and first of all, I wouldn't period, but if you feel you've been terribly wrong.
Well, we haven't heard from him yet. Everyone's assuming this is happening.
I heard from him. That finger told me everything.
Everyone is assuming that this is related to his contract dispute. Maybe he was flipping a fan off that said something to him. Who knows?
You are being very kind.
I'm being very generous right now. But let's operate under the assumption that it is about the contract dispute. Look, I don't have a problem with you expressing yourself however you feel like. Like, I'm an adult, so sometimes I use bad words as well to express myself. But I think that this is an example of why, and this is why Le'Veon Bell's laying in on it, and why Bobby Wagner said what he said, because this is why guys hold out. Because your entire season could be over in a second. And who knows? Like, it can affect the rest of your career. Who knows how this is going to affect his career?
Aaron Rodgers could have been hurt before he signed a big contract. I don't think he'd have flipped the organization off as he would be carted off the field. I think there's
maybe not.
Maybe
Aaron Rodgers isn't the one to put in that category.
But if Aaron Rodgers didn't just sign this big contract, Aaron Rodgers would have been the least paid great quarterback of my lifetime. Matt Ryan would have made significantly more. I just think there's a way to act. I guess this is my takeaway, is that to your point, I get that he has a great life compared. We all know that pro athletes make more. But there's a lot of things that went right for Earl Thomas. He was surrounded by great defensive players in an organization that really curried favor with defensive players and elevated defensive players and promoted and marketed defensive players. He won a Super Bowl. He could have won 2. The idea that he has just been treated poorly, come on.
We live in a what have you done for me lately world, so maybe that's just what's going on. So before yesterday's game against the Lions, Dak Prescott was asked by Michael Irvin if he thinks he is an elite quarterback. The all-time question, is he an elite quarterback? His answer is pretty simple. Yeah, I do. I'll always see myself as an elite quarterback, and I know I'll get back to playing that way very soon. We'll put in all the work that we need to. We'll get to exactly where we need to and want to be. The sun will rise again. Yes, it will, Dak.
Well, listen, Dallas is a 500 team. There's 2 ways to look at it. One way is, if it wasn't for just 2 passes this year, they'd be 0-4. The other way to look at it is they're 2-2 with way below average wide receiver and tight end gifts. And so it really depends on when you wake up in the morning with the Cowboys, do you want to be optimistic or pessimistic? If you're pessimistic, you're like, Dak's totally limited. If you're optimistic, you're like, he was 13-3 when he had good weapons, and we're 500 despite the fact we may have the worst receiving tight end core in the NFL. I think the Jets is worse, but whatever. So it just depends on how you see it. As far as an elite quarterback, I'm going to say he's about 15th to 16th to 17th best in the league, and whatever that's called, that's what he is. Whatever you want to label that level,
section.
that section.
Do you think he can become an elite quarterback?
No, I don't think he's a top. I never thought he was a top 10 quarterback, but that doesn't mean Andy Dalton right now got the right offensive coordinator, has one of the great players in the game, has good backs, he has protection up front. Andy Dalton's tearing it up right now. I think he's about 15th, 16th best in the league too.
Finally, a team that is not tearing it up right now, the Steelers, lost 26-14 to the Ravens last night, and Ben Roethlisberger was pretty direct in pointing out where the blame should lie. He was asked whether he's on the same page with star receiver Antonio Brown, and here is his answer.
I don't think I'm on the same page with anybody right now because I'm not playing well enough. I need to play better. Today was just a bad day at the office. We've all had them. I had one today, and I promise I'll be back to play better, and I let the guys down.
Yeah. Second week in a row, Pittsburgh, with all those gifts, couldn't score in the second half.
They're the most frustrating team in the NFL to me.
Mitch Trubisky had 6 touchdowns.
You can't listen. I understand the Ravens' defense is great, but you can't play like that against the Ravens. You can't be considered one of the top teams in the NFL and go out and play like that, especially with the weapons that you have on that offense. That was bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
I don't want to be overly dramatic, but it's looking bad in Pittsburgh. I think it's time to start panicking. I don't want to be overly dramatic, but that's just how I feel.
No, I totally get it. They're just a bad second half team. Joy Taylor with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Listen,